Hello there, I'm Jeanne Martinson with Wood Dragon Books, and today we are interviewing Marie Powell, author of Spirit Sight, Book 1 in the Last of the Gifted series. In this segment, Marie will be reading from her new book, but before that, we have gifts to give away. We are going to have two draws. One is an email draw, so if you put your name and email in the chat, just to myself or Marie, so we can send you information about the Last of the Gifted series when the second book, Water Sight, comes out, and when the books come out in audiobook. That's what we'll be using your email address for. Secondly, after the reading, Marie is going to ask a couple of questions, and if you know the answer, write the answers in the chat, directed at me, Jeanne, and the first one to answer both questions correctly wins a copy of the ebook of Spirit Sight. And we'll be announcing the winners during the last segment of the launch. And Marie, so tell us about the scenes you're about to share.
Sure. Thank you, Jeanne. I'm really excited to share two scenes with you today from Spirit Sight. This is the tale of a brother and sister who have to stretch their magical abilities to protect those they love from the invading English army. And their world at the same time is basically shattering around them. So the two sections I'm going to share will introduce to you the point of view characters in the book. I'm going to read from chapter 1, the very beginning, to introduce Hyw, the brother, and his gift. And then I'll skip ahead to chapter 6, and I'll read a little bit to introduce you to his sister Catrin. Okay? So, December 1282, Gwynedd, North Wales. He raised his arms, feeling bone and feather flatten against the wind, and knew himself tethered to air currents that smelled of salt and fish somewhere off the horizon. He ran below the bird, yet his mind and the hawk's mind moved as one. He could feel the dry December grasses beneath his bare feet, and he saw, as the hawk saw, a flash of gray fur in the stubble, the swaying pattern of a tree branch. He tried to turn the hawk's mind, his mind, to his will, and for a moment he succeeded. In the distance, he could see the stone watchtower of his home at Garethkellan, seat of the royal court of Wales. But the hawk's need was powerful, turning him back to scan the ground they circled. If he squinted just so at the yellow and russet clumps, he could make out the leaves of each tree. A shadow flitted from branch to branch. Prey. His talons ached for the soft flesh and his beak thrust forward. No, not his. It was the hawk's beak that longed to rip the flesh from bone and feather. Hyw grasped the bird's spots again and turned its head towards Prince Llewellyn's tower. There, a streak of movement across the grass. Was it some grotesque beast from the past? He urged the hawk to circle until he could see it more clearly. A single horse and rider galloped towards Garethkellan. A messenger. Fast horses in wartime never bring good news. Had the English broken the peace again? Hyw gasped, and his connection to the bird faltered. The hawk gave a piercing shriek. Hyw felt himself falling as if he dropped from its talons rather than its mind. His feet, the same feet that had seemed to barely skim the ground a moment ago, thudded against the earth. He stumbled, and the momentum of his running threw him over and down until he braced his hands against the mountainside. He almost flipped again and bit back a cry as his fingers buckled, but his shifting weight came to a stop. Tears have no place in a warrior's world, his father had told him when Hyw had sprained his ankle 5 years ago. He flexed his fingers. Each one moved painfully. Nothing was broken. When he shared the mind of an animal or bird, he often lost the sense of his own physical body. He was becoming familiar with the consequences of coming back to himself. This time, though, he'd taken it a step further. He'd done it. He had made the hawk turn so he could see what he wanted through its eyes, if only for a moment. It was easier with horses because they loved him and he them, but they couldn't see any farther than the men riding them. Hawks and other birds would be more useful in a battle, and now he had proven it. So that's just the opening bit. Hyw wants to use his gift to join his dad and the prince's bodyguard. The messenger brings an invitation to a meeting that might actually help end the war with the English. And Hyw gets his chance when he's asked along to help manage the horses. Meanwhile, though, his sister Catrin remains at home at Garethkellan. So I'm going to skip ahead to chapter 6 now and read a bit from her. At first, all she saw was water. Cat was in the chapel with her mom and some of the other women, listening to Father Maelgwyn's baritone as he sang the prayers. She had worn the cloak Hyw gave her, and she stroked the rich material with one hand. The ever-present rain drummed steadily on the stone chapel walls. "Let us pray," Father Maelgwyn sang. Cat focused on the raindrops dripping into the chapel through the arch of the window, and she drew in a breath. And suddenly, she could see the wide, dark expanse of a river. Was she dreaming? She tried to open her eyes, but the picture became clearer. Black water rumbled, swollen and churning against the banks. This wasn't her familiar Aber. What river was it? Where was it? She turned as if to ask someone and saw her brother standing on the bank, staring into the water. "Hyw!" She called his name, but he didn't look up. Couldn't he hear her? He snapped his head up but looked right past her, and then he ran. Things began to move around her. It was as if the scene broke apart and came together again. She was standing now in a meadow. The stench of blood and death filled her nostrils. She heard a high-pitched whistle. No, a scream. Someone screaming. She raised her hands to her ears, and she found herself back in the church, kneeling. She could feel the wooden balustrade in front of her and hear the chant rising and falling around her. "Dominus vobiscum," the priest sang in Latin. "The Lord be with you," Cat thought automatically, the familiar words anchoring her in the ritual. She looked up and found her mom's eyes, which slipped from smiling to alarm. Without dropping a word of the prayer, Adara touched Cat's forehead and then drew her into her side for support. Adara's clear soprano sang out, "Holy, holy, holy." This was always the part of the Te Deum that Cat liked best, and she joined in, harmonizing automatically. "Heaven and earth are full of thy glory." Had she just seen some of it? Or was it a dream? She felt a chill like the spray from the waterfall on a wintry day. Father Maelgwyn warned of darker forces. Was that what caused her vision? Was her gift evil? But how could it when it came to her in the church? She turned to her mam, but Adara shook her head slightly and touched one finger to her lips. And I'm going to leave it there, and hopefully that intrigues you enough to want to read more. And I want to, this is where you can find the book, if we'll come back to that, but I want to test your listening ability. You know, I teach ESL, English as an additional language, I guess we should say. And so this is a listening assessment for you. If you were listening, you will know the answer to these two questions. The first is, what is the name of the Royal Court of Wales? Was it Dolwth-Ellen? Was it Garth Kellen? Or was it Westminster? And what is the name of the river that Cat mentioned as her familiar something? Was it her familiar Thames? Was it her familiar Aber? Or was it her familiar Severn? So if you happen to know, all you need to write in the chat to Jeanne now is the letter. So you can just write A, B, or C, and A, B, or C, whatever you think those two answers are. And whoever gets it to her first will, and correctly, will win themselves a free ebook. And that's where we will leave it for today.
Marie, do you want to just come back on one slide? We already have a couple winners, but we have an early winner, but I'm not telling you yet. I will let you know when we get to the Q&A. So thank you very much, Marie, for that reading. So where do you find the book? Well, I have this one here, and no one's getting it. But where can you find it? As an ebook, it's on Kobo and Kindle, whichever reader you use. In print, it's available on Amazon, obviously. If you're in Saskatchewan, SAS Books will have stock. Chapters will have stock. And if you're not close to either of those, you can go into your local bookstore and they will order in a copy if they don't have it available. We are very excited about down the road putting this book and the next book, Watersight, into audiobooks. And we're already putting down the plan on that. So in the new year, both of the books will be out in audiobook form for people who enjoy reading by not reading. So when we come back after the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about this amazing journey that Marie's been on for Last of the Gifted. Thank
I
you.
actually have book links here too, if that helps anybody. I could put them in the chat too.
That's great. We'll put them in the chat.